The Resolute drifted through the cold emptiness of space, its hull scorched from earlier skirmishes, its systems barely stable. It wasn't a warship anymore. It was a tomb carrying the living. But inside, something raw and ancient had begun to stir. Pain. And beneath the pain, rage. Naira left the bridge and walked the narrow corridors of the ship. Marines stood at attention in dented armor, their helmets held under their arms like forgotten promises. Technicians worked in silence, replacing wiring with scraps, rerouting power through failing relays. Even the janitorial drones moved slower, like they too knew what had been lost. She passed a viewport. Earth wasn't visible anymore, but her mind filled in the silhouette. The swirl of clouds, the curve of continents. Her home. Their home. All of it, gone in 1 hour of alien fear. She clenched her fists. She had spent her entire life training to defend Earth. Command school, naval campaigns, border disputes, treaties, peacekeeping. All for what? To be erased without a fight. No, not without payback. In the war room, a holographic star map flickered to life. Blue dots, human ships, glowed faintly. Maybe a dozen. The rest had gone dark. But that was enough. We still have ships in the drift zones, Commander Ishan reported, running diagnostics across a cracked datapad. Civilian cruisers, terraforming vessels, 1 or 2 retrofitted asteroid rigs. No real firepower. But people, yes. Naira nodded. How long to send encrypted coordinates? 40 minutes, if we're lucky. Then we don't wait. Send them. Tell them to rendezvous at Site Theta 17. The room went still. Lieutenant Corrin frowned. That's a ghost rock, Mom. No atmosphere. Old mining outpost. Abandoned and gutted. Exactly, Naira said. It's the last place they'll look for survivors. Her gaze swept across the room. We're not trying to rebuild Earth. We're not trying to recreate the past. We're going to forge something new. Something mobile, adaptive, human. She tapped the star map. It zoomed out, showing the territories of the Concord, 1,000 stars under their rule. We lost our planet, but they just made the mistake of making us homeless. You think we were dangerous when we had a cradle. Now we have nothing to lose. In the engineering bay, Specialist Rana activated the protoforge, a chaotic mess of plasma arcs, scrap drones, and illegally modified nanofactories. She fed it broken Concord tech scavenged from the last skirmish. Strange alloys, energy coils that pulsed in unfamiliar colors. She didn't know what half of it did, but she knew humans would make it deadlier. We're not going extinct, she muttered. We're mutating. The forge answered with a hiss and a glow. The first prototype weapon hummed into existence. A rifle made of human ingenuity and alien fear. Aboard the Resolute across asteroid colonies, drifting wrecks and silent moons, the survivors began to awaken. Not with grief, but with purpose. Humanity had been evicted from Earth. Now it would invade the stars. 3 months after Earth's fall, the galaxy had already moved on. The Concord's official message described it as necessary neutralization, an action taken in the name of galactic stability. The other species turned away. Even those who pitied humanity feared the Concord more. And with Earth reduced to drifting slag, they assumed the human problem was solved. They were wrong. Admiral Neravos had gathered 6 ships, patched together from what should have been orbital wreckage and abandoned stations. They had names like Oathbreaker, Roguechild, Saul's Echo. Barely spaceworthy. Half were civilian transports. One was an old mining barge that still reeked of helium-3 and engine grease. And yet, in every hold and deck, humans were rebuilding. They converted cargo bays into barracks, fusion drills into railguns, solar wings into cloaking arrays. It was a Frankenstein fleet, ugly, loud, unpredictable, but alive. The Resolute served as the fleet's heart. Naira turned its war room into a council chamber. Not a military command, but a gathering of survivors, soldiers, scientists, engineers, hackers, and even ex-convicts who'd escaped Concord prisons during the chaos. They called themselves the Scattered, not out of shame, but defiance. "We are the pieces they couldn't burn," Naira declared during the first gathering. "And now we will be the match that sets their empire alight." The first act of vengeance came sooner than expected. A Concord supply convoy passed near an old terraforming route near Ganurex 12. The Oathbreaker, hiding in a gravity pocket, waited in silence. It had no real weapons, but it had humans. Engineer Solenrake, once a demolitionist for asteroid mining, had strapped together a weapon using the last of their fusion batteries, 4 compressed magnetic slugs, and half a Concord fuel cell. The device had no safety features, no override. It was pure suicidal brilliance. When the convoy passed, the Oathbreaker fired once. The energy discharge tore through space-time, temporarily knocking all 6 ships out of warp. The slugs pierced the lead freighter's antimatter tank. A chain reaction followed. 6 Concord ships disintegrated into drifting wreckage. The Scattered didn't celebrate. They salvaged. They learned. And they disappeared. The Concord never saw it coming. Word spread. Through the black market channels, through pirate comms and rebel whispers, humans still live. And they're not hiding. They're hunting. At first, other species laughed, until a Zarkari commander went missing. Then a patrol outpost stopped responding. Then an arms depot in neutral space was stripped to its bones. Its own automated defense systems turned against it. The Concord's admirals began to ask, how were they doing this? The answer was simple. Humanity had nothing left to lose. And a species with nothing to lose is more dangerous than any army. The Concord still hunted them, but the void was vast, and the Scattered moved like ghosts. Admiral Nera knew their patchwork fleet couldn't keep drifting forever. They needed more than stolen fuel and temporary repairs. They needed a foundation, a place to evolve. That's when they found Vask 9. It wasn't much, a lifeless rock orbiting a neutron star, forgotten by most stellar charts. No breathable air, radiation storms every 12 hours. The kind of world no species would ever settle. Except humans. Naira ordered an immediate descent. The ships landed in pieces, radiation-scorched hulls, but engineering crews went to work. They rigged old Concord shield cores to create atmospheric bubbles. Engineers burrowed into the rock, building underground chambers sealed by fusion-welded alloy. The first city was not above ground, but inside it. They called it Cinderhold. Terraforming began the same week. Not with biodomes or terramoss, but with grit. The UHL's remaining biochemists, most of whom used to work for private corporations, developed bacteria strains that could cling to irradiated stone and excrete breathable oxygen. Miners cracked deep fissures to anchor geothermal taps. Engineers built vertical farms under synthetic UV light. Children played beneath reactor towers. Soldiers sparred in gravity-hardened tunnels. No one complained, because everyone remembered Earth. Cinderhold wasn't just a hideout, it was an engine. A place to build what Earth's nations had never allowed. Hybrid tech. Concord artifacts were brought in by the dozen, disassembled, reverse-engineered, reimagined. Plasma conduits were paired with human rail systems. Concord I-cores were hacked and made subservient to human-coded logic. Dr. Aaron Maddox led the effort, once blacklisted by Earth's governments for illegal AI research, now given free rein. She called it weaponized synthesis. The first result: the Glaive-class armor. Exosuits forged from neutron alloy, powered by anti-mass cores, and tailored to human neurology. They weren't just stronger, they were smarter, faster, and built for rage-fueled combat. Only humans could wear them. The neural feedback was too violent for any other species, which suited the UHL just fine. But even in the depths of Cinderhold, not all was peace. The survivors argued. Some wanted to return to hiding. Others pushed for total war. Naira listened to them all. And then she gave them a choice. She called it the Founding Charter. A new code, not based on borders or bloodlines, but unity through loss. No single planet would ever define humanity again. No authority could suppress adaptation. The scattered would become the united human legacy, mobile, evolving, unkillable. She presented the charter in front of Cinderhole's gravity well, the stars spinning like a crown behind her. One by one, the leaders signed it. Even the rogue AI known as Kovacs, once Concord owned, now a self-proclaimed citizen of the UHL. From the ashes of Earth, humanity had not rebuilt paradise. They had built something better, something inevitable. By year 2, the united human legacy was no longer just surviving. It was striking back. The Concord still referred to them as scattered remnants, but in quiet corners of the galaxy, their name had become something else. Voidborn, Wraiths, the Burned Ones. Because everywhere they went, something caught fire. The UHL didn't conquer planets. They didn't hold territory. They didn't waste time with speeches or ultimatums. They just arrived. Hit hard. Vanish. Repeat. Their fleets now numbered in the dozens, modular warships crafted from reassembled Concord wrecks and retrofitted asteroid haulers. They were ugly, asymmetrical, and lethal. Human pilots flew like lunatics, executing maneuvers that I wouldn't attempt, diving into singularities, slingshotting through gas giants just to get a shot at Concord cruisers. They didn't care if the odds were bad. They only cared that someone paid. But power brings pressure. UHL outposts across the fringe began growing too fast. Resources were stretched thin. Coordinated missions turned into chaos. Civilian survivors flooded their ranks, some desperate, others just hungry. Among them came Dane Rell, a former UPA captain who had vanished during Earth's final hours. He arrived at Cinderhold with his own fleet, 5 stolen Concord skimmers, and a reputation for brutality. He pledged loyalty to Nara, but rumors spread quickly. Dane's crew had enslaved an alien colony to mine plasma ore. He claimed it was necessary. Naira disagreed. "You think we burned the Concord by becoming them?" she asked him during the council session. "We win by surviving," Dane said. "And I don't take morality lessons from the ghost of a planet." The chamber erupted into argument, until Naira stood, calm and cold. "You want to rule, Dane," she said. "Then take your ships. Fly your own flag." He smirked. "Gladly." That night, Dane Rell's fleet tried to flee Cinderhold. They didn't make it past the orbital mines. Naira's decision fractured the legacy. Some believed she was too idealistic. Others feared civil war. But in the wake of Dane's execution, a strange thing happened. The UHL grew stronger. Because the message was clear. Humanity would not be ruled by tyrants. Not again. And other species began to take notice. The Hadrathi, once slaves to the Concord, reached out in secret. So did the Virenkin, who had lost 3 homeworlds to Concord pacification. Even rogue Concord citizens, low-caste engineers, and banned philosophers began defecting. Naira welcomed them all, not as equals yet, but as students. They trained in UHL battlefields, lived in human-engineered bunkers, watched as humans reprogrammed their enemies' machines into allies, and in time, they began to call themselves part of the legacy. The final blow in this chapter came at the siege of Takara Forge, a Concord manufacturing station buried inside a planet's crust. The UHL slipped in through seismic tunnels. They didn't just destroy it. They stole it. An entire planetary factory, gone in hours. The Concord called it a terrorist act. But across the stars, one phrase echoed in a dozen languages. "The Earthborn are coming." The Concord did not beg. They commanded, as they always had. When their supply lanes vanished and their outposts went dark, they blamed pirates. When whole colonies defected overnight, They blamed rogue politics. But when an entire sector of space collapsed into open rebellion, backed by human-supplied weaponry and ghost fleets, they could no longer lie to themselves. The humans weren't defeated. They were everywhere. So the Concord did what tyrants always do when they feel fear. They tried to burn everything. It began with Operation Divine Anchor, a full military purge. 1,000 Concord warships mobilized to crush the UHL across known space. Civilian settlements were vaporized. Alien collaborators were executed en masse. Planetary atmospheres were stripped just to send a message. And the message was clear: submit or die. The UHL didn't flinch. They had been waiting for this. Admiral Nara Vos met the Concord's fire with calculated fury. Her fleets weren't built for direct confrontation, but now they had the numbers, the tech, the allies, and something else the Concord lacked: rage sharpened by purpose. The final campaign began at Nakara's Reach, near the border of Concord Prime. Human tacticians destabilized the warp lanes, forcing enemy fleets to travel sublight. UHL engineers launched gravity mines seated inside asteroids. Concord destroyers tore themselves apart trying to reroute. Meanwhile, UHL infiltrators, some enhanced with neural grafts, others trained in zero melee combat, slipped into orbital defense rings. They didn't just sabotage systems, they rewrote them. At Silari Voidgate, a Concord fleet became trapped in a pocket of frozen time, its engines moving at a crawl, while UHL drones dismantled them mid-flight. The galaxy watched in shock. The Concord wasn't just losing battles, it was being outthought. And then came the final strike. Concord Prime, a world untouched by war for over 6 centuries. Its capital spanned continents. Its sky shimmered with orbital shields and war satellites. Billions of citizens believed it was impenetrable. They were wrong. The UHL didn't invade it from above. They came from beneath. For years, UHL sleeper cells had tunneled from deep orbit using subquantum drills, boring into the crust, planting explosives, feeding real-time data to the Resolute and its battle group. When the signal came, the sky opened. Not with fire, but with collapse. Orbital platforms fell. Cities shattered from the inside. Defense grids shorted as human code infected their cores. By the time the first UHL dropships arrived, half the Concord's leadership was already dead. Admiral Naira led the final charge herself, wearing a glaive-class exosuit forged from the scorched steel of Earth's last orbital dock. She didn't offer surrender terms. She offered silence. And silence is what followed. The war ended in a whisper. Concord worlds fell quiet. Their star-spanning rule, once thought eternal, became just another page in galactic history. In its place rose something new. Not an empire, not a federation, but a legacy. 10 years after Earth's death, no one called humans refugees anymore. The United Human legacy spanned hundreds of systems, fractured, fluid, and free. There were no capitals, no borders, no planetary chains. Humanity had become what Naira Vols envisioned in the ashes, a species of the stars. Cindervold, once a radiation-choked mining moon, was now a monument, not of power, but of memory. The halls still bore scorch marks from the early days. The oxygen farms still ran on outdated bacterial cycles, and deep in its stone heart, the founding charter was carved in every known language, including those of species the Concord had once silenced. Above it, in geosynchronous orbit, spun a construct called Sol's Ring, a world-sized arc made from salvaged Concord hulls and Earth's surviving orbital fragments. 1 billion names were etched into its frame: lost citizens, soldiers, colonists, and children. The dead had no graves, so the living gave them stars. Admiral Naira Vos, now simply Naira to the legacy, refused the title of Chancellor. She led from the front, or not at all. In her stead, the legacy operated through rotating councils, Humans, Hadrathi, Varenkin, and dozens of other once-oppressed species, bound not by fear, but by choice. A choice to remember the past and never repeat it. Children born after Earth's fall asked what oceans tasted like, what it meant to walk under blue skies. They learned not with tears, but with pride, because their parents had survived. Their grandparents had burned, and in doing so, blinded the stars. Humanity didn't rule the galaxy. They influenced it. Legacy-trained diplomats helped broker peace between ancient rivals. Human-engineered machines rebuilt atmospheres once declared lost. Former Concord worlds asked to join, not out of desperation, but respect. Because humans had done the impossible. They had turned extinction into evolution. They had turned suffering into strength. They had turned the end of Earth into the beginning of everything. In a quiet chamber aboard the Resolute, now a museum drifting above Sol's Ring, Nara stood alone, looking out at a replica of Earth rendered in holographic memory. No storms, no fire, just the Earth as it had been. Green, blue, fragile. I used to think we needed it, she whispered. That we were it. She turned from the window and walked into the starlit dark. We were never earthbound, she said. We were always reaching beyond. In the centuries that followed, stories would twist and mythologize. Some would say Earth was never real. Others would claim the humans were never truly wiped out. But those who bore the legacy knew the truth. We lost our world. We lost our gravity. And in doing so, we gained the universe.